Sonic finds another secret ring, which had been driving the spirits mad from its power. He asks Chara to take out the fire arrow in his chest. Why didn't he ask her that right away? Is he that much of an idiot? He must be, because he should have known she couldn't do it when she said, "My magic is no match for erasers." Obviously, if she could have done it, she would have. Sonic tells her to cheer up, saying that no adventure is fun when it's too easy. He says it would have been nice if her magic did work. It goes at odds with him being nice to her, so at this point I expect him to keep that to himself. So as cathartic as it is, I wish it was kept to his thoughts. The villain calls forth evil spirits, ye condemned by Iblis. So they had to call it Ifrit in Sonic Rivals, but it's called Iblis here? That's so weird. They would have changed it to Iblis to avoid confusion. I think Iblis was named after this thing. He summons an Ifrit to burn away the other half of the Arabian Nights. Wait, why didn't he do that earlier if it was that easy? I guess he was too stupid to think of this until now. He wants Sonic to gather the world rings for him, so he's gonna summon the Ifrit to burn away the Arabian Nights so that he can't gather the world rings for him. And even though he called Sonic worthless, he can't think of him as worthless if he's using him to gather the world rings. And if he actually got him to believe he was worthless, he wouldn't bother trying to get the world rings for him because he wouldn't think he could do it. So what is the point of trying to undermine his confidence? How does he make sense? Chara explains that his life force is tied to the flame and he can't fight fire with fire. He tells Chara to lend him her power. Why does he say time break when he should have no way of knowing of its existence? Chara didn't tell him that ability's name. It's like lending her power to him put the knowledge of it in his brain. Makes sense. I mean, how would he have ever known he could fly as Supersonic if getting the power didn't put it in his brain? So that's how magic always works in the Sonic world. The name isn't even intuitive to indicate what the ability is supposed to do. Sonic uses Time Break to avoid being crushed by a giant hand. And he and Chara are smart enough to run away. So Sonic returns to Alibaba and tells him about the fire spirit. Tails says that his friend Sinbad may be able to share some of its worldly knowledge with him, because apparently a genius doesn't have worldly knowledge to give Sonic himself. To be fair, he is younger than him. We can easily assume that all of his knowledge is concentrated on what he's interested in. But Alibaba isn't supposed to be a kid. Sinbad was fighting some pirates when he was kidnapped by a giant living fossil bird. So instead of the story being creative, he suffered the same fate as Eggman? Why don't the people of the Arabian Nights just hunt these dangerous birds to extinction already? Those things are a menace. In a world with genies, why didn't people ask genies to get rid of the Rooks? The Rook, as this bird is called, lives in the skies to the west. And Sonic decides to go there because that's his only clue as to how to progress. Sonic tells Chara to summon a magic carpet. And Sinbad looks like Knuckles. Knuckles shows himself to be an arrogant jerk. If he's traveled the world being a hero instead of being isolated on his island, of course he's going to be a lot more knowledgeable than Knuckles from that fact alone. It's Knuckles at his true potential. Chara says the only way they can free him from the cage is to undo Eraser's spell, and Sonic would rather leave him there.
Let's just leave him there.
Let's think for a second what would have happened to Knuckles if he actually was left behind in that cage. He wouldn't have any access to food or water or anything essential like that, so he'd slowly die without anything necessary for him to live. Sonic can't possibly think that anyone else would come and save him. I know Sonic's never been a pure noble hero like Mario, and I appreciate that. Sonic not being like Mario is what got him successful and popular in the first place. But this is going overboard. And everything from the look on his face to the tone of his voice to the exact words he's saying implies that he does want to leave him there. It has to be that he's not thinking far ahead. After all, he lives in the present, so he wouldn't think of the future. And that goes to show you an in-game basis for how he could be a jerk. Sonic doubts that he has any wisdom at all, refusing to acknowledge him as a separate individual from Knuckles. I'd say this is where Sonic Prime got it, but I doubt the people who made it actually saw this game, so it's only an unintentional flanderization. The only reason he agrees to save him is because Knuckles said he would only help him out if he freed him. And they call Archie Sonic a dick. So Knuckles gets freed, and naturally, he asks why they don't try splashing some water on the fire monster. He's street smart. You see fire, you put out with water. Sonic responds with smug sarcasm about it. It makes sense after he went through all the trouble of freeing him just to get this as advice. But of course he should have kept it to himself. And Knuckles points out that he's not any smarter than he is. I love that someone looking like Tails tells him to stop arguing. Pirates locked him up. Sonic is excited that he has even more villains to deal with, being entertaining and adventurous as he usually is. I like that. He finds another one of the 7 world rings. So Dark Gaia can't alter his brain when he's the Werehog, but this can, which is far more realistic. The censors let him say hell because he was referring specifically to hell. I don't like that it doesn't tell you the specific emotion he's talking about. I guess he means anxiety and frustration. Chara gives Sonic a lamp, saying that she can't use it by herself and that he needs it to stop the villain as a last resort. She really trusts him now. Sonic wonders if the reason he's the only one who can touch the secret rings is that he's not from this world. How would you say that when pirates from this world took it just fine? Sonic uses the water ring against the Ifrit and eventually destroys it. It condenses into a small bomb. And he logically decides that it has to explode out in the open and leaves the cave. Sonic discovers one of the rings. Sonic feels rage, clearly resisting it and not showing it. I don't understand why there's barely any world rings that make Sonic feel something when they're all supposed to represent emotions. I think it's that the more rings he has, the less resistant he is to the emotion it makes him feel. Otherwise, it's just arbitrary. I love the idea that each one represents an emotion. It makes them less Chaos Emerald knockoffs. And it makes Sonic relatable that he's not immune to the emotion, because that would make him a total creator's pet. I hate the line, "the power of rage." Great acting there. But there's no way to say that line with good acting in the first place. Chara says that King Solomon sealed away the evil spirits long ago, so the strange occurrences of evil spirits must connect back to him, and not Eraser, the most dangerous and powerful villain in the Arabian Nights world. Clearly the guy who hated evil spirits to the point of sealing them away would definitely undo the seal. It's a shame there's 2 different kings that could be called King S. So they really would have to say King Shahryar to specify it. So Sonic meets King Solomon, who's now Flying Skull.
If you say so.
He says that the villain of the game did this to him. Why was he targeting King Solomon when he didn't do anything against him? King Solomon asks Sonic to track down the rest of his body and do something about the 40 thieves. What kind of an emotion is light? How do you feel light? Unless it's the warmth of sunlight. But he called that warmth, not light. Sonic can sound pretty wise at times. It's weird to say that about him.
Just what does Eraser want by collecting all of these rings?
King Solomon explains that many evil spirits were driven into madness, somehow. And it was his fault that he drove them to be the villain's minions. He explains that Sonic can seal the genie away in the lamp she gave him. We could have assumed that. Why tell us this? And he tells him where to find the Eraser. He's told that he has to show the palace gates the White World Ring to magically open them. So Eraser made it like this to force him to get it. I can't help but feel like they designed him as a skull just because they were too lazy to design another human. And with the backlash against humans, it makes sense. He is more interesting looking than another human. The palace rises into the sky with land below it like it's Angel Island. and Sonic shows up without a fire arrow in his chest getting into it. This cutscene is pretty epic, cinematic, and badass, but it's got no dialogue, and it barely progresses the story, so it just feels like a huge waste of time. It's so respectful of him to keep forcing himself to act cheerful. It adds depth to his character that is only pretending to be cheerful. Chara apologizes to him, and Sonic reassures her, reminding her of the promise he made. Although I haven't forgotten that promise, I can't help but think it's a lame line. While the scene is very good for Sonic's character, it just reminds me of how needlessly depressing the curse is. Just one cutscene would be enough for this. We get everything good out of it story-wise. I don't see the appeal in having it last longer than that unless you hate Sonic. This is the second time he's asked him if he brought the world rings. It's become mimetic. Sonic insists on him looking for them himself, and the genie threatens him. It's a pretty dark line for a Sonic game to have. Sonic finds the purple secret ring. He notices that it's sealed with sadness. Not that he cries because of it. He finally asks Chara how she and Eraser know each other. That's not only a question he should have asked from the very beginning, because most people would have, but it's also a question that never gets clearly answered. When she doesn't want to answer the question, he's nice to her. Chara reveals that Eraser is the lovable genie from Aladdin. How could a lovable character like that have gotten as evil as Eraser no matter what his excuse is? Now we finally get the backstory for Eraser, and it's near the end of the game. It should have been at the beginning. It's not good storytelling when they wait until the end of the game to start giving you exposition on the whole reason the villain does everything he does, and have him just be a card-carrying villain without a backstory for most of it. So we spent most of the story not thinking of him as a person. It means you don't enjoy most of the story as much. It comes off as a sob story doesn't deserve because it doesn't explain him turning evil. His backstory doesn't guarantee that you turn evil. Aladdin freed his genie at the end of the story. Why would Eraser have turned evil from working for humans long after he was freed? He was sealed away in a lamp for his misdeeds and forced to grant the wishes of 1,000 people. When his sentence had been served, he had a renewed hatred of people. But he had to have been evil in the first place to do misdeeds, so what caused those? Why even bother giving him a motive at all if you're not explaining why he was evil in the first place? His backstory would have been more poignant if he had been sealed away in a lamp to grant wishes simply because he was a genie. Even Fairly Odd Parents did this concept better. You know what backstory sucks? When the backstory that you would expect him to have would have been better. Chara thinks him being punished for his crimes is sad, so Sonic beats Eraser. He sees a door blocking his path after Eraser flies away. Sonic's genre savvy enough to try to open it by saying "Open Sesame." It doesn't work, and then are a bunch of doors or walls magically appearing, even though Sonic's not commenting on it? Sonic reads something saying that having all 7 world rings will cause the portal we know. Sonic responds sarcastically to Eraser. I know he's being sarcastic, but I'd still take him being mean over that, because it looks like he's sucking up to him to get his curse removed. Which is smart, but not as brave as standing up to him. I thought he wanted to destroy the world he was in. He never said he wanted to escape the book and rule the actual world. Just because Eraser asks Chara to join him, she heads towards him. But she sounds sad about it. Because all she wants is to date him again. It makes you wonder why she left him at all then. I guess he broke up with her. Sonic decides to stop Chara with his ring. She grants his wish. We don't see the villain attack her. And she doesn't attack herself. Why is the villain listing off the names of the world rings and what emotions they have? Prayers and wishes are essentially the same thing, so that's redundant as hell. I know they wouldn't be referring to the religious meaning of the word prayers. That's not an emotion. And what the hell does he mean by hearts making up stories? What does he mean by heart, and how can a heart make up a story? Wouldn't the components of a story be ink and paper? I feel like I'm watching Kingdom Hearts, where they say the word heart so much that it loses all meaning. Oh, he finally called him a hedgehog. And wouldn't Shara count as the collector of the rings? He tries to attack Sonic, but Shara takes the blow for him. She was just lying on the ground. Why did granting Sonic's wish make her fall to the ground? It's like she only fell to be dramatic. She was just lying on the ground, and then she all of a sudden springs herself back up to use herself as a human shield. How did she have the energy for that? How did she do that quick enough? So why does Shara look human and the Eraser look like a ridiculous purple ogre? I guess it's because she's less powerful, but they're still the same species. Aren't they? If not, the fact that she dated him was even weirder. She apologizes to Sonic. This is actually a pretty touching scene, and the music certainly helps. Sonic keeps being the reassuring, understanding friend that he never was to Knuckles. The promise was that Sonic would have her smiling by the end, and she's not smiling. So she didn't keep it. How does this line make sense? Sonic makes a wish, and of course, she can't grant it. What a surprise. This is just ridiculous. Do you think she'd be able to heal her own injuries if she can summon stuff? Because she could summon skin and blood. It's not like the Eraser casts a spell on her that she'd have to undo. The Eraser has no compassion for Shara, and is completely uninteresting because he doesn't even love her, even though he kept trying to get her back together with him. Then why her, specifically, when he could zap up or brainwash any girlfriend he wants? If he wanted her specifically, why isn't he upset that she dies? I assume it's just a thing where the abuser wants his abused girlfriend to be with him because he thinks she's his. The Eraser uses the ring to achieve his super form to destroy everything. And then his hideous super form somehow ejects the negative emotion rings towards Sonic. And Sonic is so incredibly upset with the villain for his cold-hearted response to Shara's death that he gets empowered by the negative rings and achieves an evil-looking super form. It's my least favorite super form in the entire franchise because of how it looks. It tries too hard to make Sonic look evil, when being mad doesn't make you evil. Just because he's mad doesn't mean you have to have him without irises. He's got eyes without irises or pupils in them, and a deep voice like the werehog. It is a pretty interesting role reversal though. Usually, it's Sonic who transforms using positive energy, and the villain uses negative energy. The villain still looks like he used the negative power though. It's not like he gets all gold and spiky. You expect me to take you seriously when your name is Elf? First he said he's going to destroy all of the Arabian Nights, and now he's saying he wants to rewrite it? If he destroys it first, there's going to be nothing left to rewrite. It's about time Sonic takes the threat seriously. I don't know what he means by incomplete though. He asks Shara to lend him her power. If she can do that, she's not really dead. Why did he know she could do that? She had no reason to tell him that. I hate what he says when he defeats him though. It's so lame. I can't compliment enough that there is a negative super form though. It's not pretending that he's a perfect Mary Sue. Now we get a proper CGI cutscene for the ending. Eraser insists that he'll do nothing but return over and over no matter how many times he gets killed. Only to panic at finally realizing that Sonic has his lamp with him. I guess he pulled it from the quills in his head. There's no other explanation I can give as to why he was able to have it with him all along and it wasn't spotted earlier. If he did spot it earlier, then he shouldn't have forgotten about it. So Sonic uses the lamp to control him. It's pretty awesome that he gives him exactly what he deserves. It's my favorite villain defeat in the Sonic franchise because of just how much happens in Sonic's favor in the villain's humiliation. It's a perfect karmic punishment. And then we see a flashback. Because viewers are goldfish, apparently. Normally I'd be calling someone out on controlling a person when he's so supportive of freedom. And thus should be sickened by the concept of robbing someone of free will. But the villain deserves it. And considering what he put Sonic through, it's more than justified that Sonic would feel like he deserves it as well. What's really the problem here is that the Eraser already finished serving his sentence. So wouldn't they be free of the lamp? I guess people were too lazy to break the curse on the lamp. Because why would they bother? Did he somehow forget that the lamp forced them to grant his wishes? So he's a magical genie who can teleport, as we saw in the first boss fight with him. Why didn't he teleport out of the room before Sonic could use the lamp on him? I mean, he instantly wanted to get away from him, so it's not like he's too ashamed to run away from him. It would suck if he warped away from him. None of his wishes involve, get rid of the curse on me or the fire arrow in my chest. So there's no logical reason they would disappear, unless Sonic turning into Darkspine Sonic magically removed the curse. Which only makes sense in retrospect, because in Sonic Generations, turning Super magically heals him. It's still confusing because it's not like he used the Chaos Emerald to turn Super. Usually how it works is the curse can only be removed by the same person who casts it. Sonic traps a genie in the lamp for all eternity. Normally I'd be calling Sonic a hypocrite for imprisoning someone forever when he himself supports freedom. Especially since he was opposed to sealing away chaos. He's opposed to trapping a genocidal maniac who just flooded Station Square and could have killed hundreds of people, who showed no indication that he could possibly stop being mad. But he's fine with trapping the Eraser. It seems inconsistent. But looking back on everything the genie has put him through, and the fact that he doesn't love Chao while Chaos did, it makes perfect sense that he would hate him this much. And it's not like he has a choice anyways. It's either do the smart thing, or rob him of freedom even more by wishing that he's good. And it makes sense that he'd be too angry to think of that. So he seals him in his lamp, and blows out the flame coming out of it. I know it's meant to look cool, and it does, but what does it mean? What's that flame? Why was it there? I think he literally just did it to look cool. How did they not realize how lame it was that he said handkerchiefs here? But at least he's being nice. Why would him running long enough make him find his way home? Wouldn't he have needed Shara to escape because he used her to get here in the first place? Why would he have many adventures? If he spends too long of a time in the world of the Arabian Nights, Eggman will take over his own world. He's not that irresponsible that he doesn't realize that. He does what he wants, but he wants to protect his homeworld first. I like the idea of him having adventures here, but many adventures is pushing it. And considering how resentful he was of Knuckles in this game, I'm surprised he was willing to have many adventures with him. I guess he thought he needed his help. I like Sonic's personality in this game. It's focused on him being nice and a thrill seeker, so it's focused on some of the best parts about him. But the story is full of plot holes when you think about it. And the plot points of Sonic's chest being pierced by a fire arrow for the whole game that's openly draining his life away, which really only amounted to one cutscene, so it didn't really need to exist as long as it did. And Sonic's overly evil looking super form. All of them combine into a plot that's overly depressing for me. Having dark elements isn't necessarily bad, but I don't see the point of these. It's interesting that she used to date Razor, but that's about all you can say about it. If you removed it from the plot, it'd be the exact same plot. Sonic didn't need to be cursed the whole game, because he had to get the rings regardless. And what's the point of killing her if it's just gonna bring her back? It's no different than Flood dying in Super Mario Sunshine. Although it's a lot more dramatic, it does a lot better a job of making you sympathize with her. The game does have actual humor in it. Also, I always hated the concept of Sonic being in a storybook for no reason. It's like a fanfiction crossover. It's completely uncreative. It's not creative compared to doing your own story. It has no faith in the audience to care about Sinbad and Alibaba without making them look like characters you already know. Chara's a complete opposite to Sonic, and without him being realistically annoyed with her. So the character dynamic isn't likable, because she's a wet blanket who always tells him to stop enjoying himself and underestimating him. There's no reason the two should get along well. Sonic's always nice to her even before he knows about her past. One of his core character traits is impatience. How is he patient enough to be constantly nice to her? It's like it's overly attached to its new character. So Sonic's nice to her because it wants you to like her. I wouldn't really say it's a good story. It's not creative. It's overly depressing. If all you can really say is fantastic about it is, I like two of the characters. Well, most of what's surrounding it sucks, so I don't know how it's good.